The most intriguing story of the day will be the wide receiver for Marshall, Randy Moss, who I did not see right there. What happens with him?
Well, the off-the-field concerns certainly are there. Not on the field. Of course, at Marshall, dominated the Mid-American Conference. Those 44 touchdowns really stick out. He was a man among boys when you talk about how he dominated cornerbacks in the MAC. But those off-the-field concerns, and really as a wide receiver, he still has to develop his skills, getting off press coverage, route running.
But for Pro Bowl talent, he may be a man among boys, as you say. Now, we really begin to watch where Randy Moss may or may not go. Of course, his on-the-field production at Marshall in 2 years, tremendous. Look at the touchdowns, 44 TDs, most of them in the last 2 years, 25 touchdowns in last season. However, to boil it down, high school days at West Virginia, 2 counts of misdemeanor battery, that pretty much nixed him. He was on his way to Notre Dame. Then Bobby Bowden took a shot at him at Florida State, but while he tested positive for marijuana while serving some time, that nixed his potential career at Florida State. While at Marshall, charges that were later dropped, but continue to have some trouble. Do you take a risk and just go with him because he's a great football player, or is there a red flag? Here's the views around the league.
Randy Moss is on our draft board right now, rated as a first-round pick. When we actually stack our board, then he won't be on the board.
I don't think you can judge people on other people. I think that if the New Orleans Saints and Bill Carrick or Mike Ditka judges Randy Moss or anybody else in Randy's on Lawrence Phillips, you're doing a disservice to Randy Moss. You have to judge every player, an individual situation. You can't lump them together.
I just think if you're going to invest a first-round pick in a player, there better not be any question marks in regard to his past performances off the field.
You have to err on the side of caution because it can be very destructive to your salary cap. It can be very destructive to getting the right type of guys in and being able to pay them. So sometimes you may miss on a guy who is going to come in and do very, very well, but you have to play the percentages.
Well, I don't like bad character. I write past history of whatever it was. Do I think that can be changed? Then I put down yes or no. Do I think it can be changed? Yes. Do I think he's changed already? I think he's in the progress of trying to change. Whether he's changed or not, I don't know.
I find one of the most telling sound bites in there was Tony Dungy. Remember how Warren Sapp fell a few years ago and fell into Tampa's hands? They got themselves the best defensive player of that draft. There's how things can change, and you play the percentages. Let's go to Andrea Kramer, who might be playing the percentages, Andrea.
Well, Chris, I had a chance to read some team scouting reports and psychological assessments of Moss, and due to character problems, which are obviously well documented, there's great concern by this one team scouting report as to how Moss would potentially handle a high-priced multi-million-dollar contract. Now, the scouting report also detailed how the lack of discipline was affecting his work habits. One scout questioned his ability to lead or if he would accept criticism, and one scout went so far as to say that to the best of their knowledge, Moss had not even been really yelled at by anybody at Marshall, so how would he respond to that type of discipline once he got into the pros? The psychological tests that I saw, the summarization was, until he develops more self-discipline, he will be his own worst enemy. And this was from a psychological test that is administered to many players throughout the draft. Now, as for his on-the-field performance, scouting reports say he can basically do whatever he wants on the field. However, the flip side of that is one team's report which says they wonder how he'll be able to get separation from his defenders and how he'll handle bump and run coverage in the NFL. So certainly a wide variety of opinion, Chris, on Randy Moss.
No question, Andrea, there is a wide variety of opinion, and someone who is dialed in right now is our Linda Cohn. In West Virginia, spent yesterday with many of the officials at the Thundering Herd of Marshall, for whom Randy Moss starred and led them to the Conquest Bowl last year, and of course the playoffs the year before in Division I AA, and is now in Charleston, West Virginia right now, and is at the location where Randy Moss is. And what's the feeling there, Linda? Are they excited? Are they nervous? Do you have a feel on the situation?
Well, Chris, can you be relaxed and anxious at the very same time? That's what Randy Moss is doing right now. And yes, I am at the home of his advisors. And a lot going on, and they are looking forward to what could happen. Randy is just anxious to prove his point out on the field. You know, when I spoke to Randy in length yesterday as well as a little bit this morning, I spoke to him about, and I asked him what would happen when, if the Saints do select him, what would happen if Mike Ditka would yell at him for the very first time? And Randy turned to me and he said simply, you know what, you know how you prevent the yelling? Doing your job and performing and doing well, and that way he wouldn't have to worry about dealing with a Mike Ditka and the yelling and potential adversity on the field. He's not even thinking about that. During my visit to Marshall University yesterday, I spoke to the coaches, I spoke to the teammates, and this Randy Moss that's being talked about by some NFL teams is simply not the Randy Moss that they know.
Well, he hasn't been a bad guy around us, you know. He's been here 2 years and he's done everything we've asked him to do. He's adhered to our very strict rules we have for our football team. He's made every practice. He's not had a crossword with a coach.
It's amazing to see how most people base on perception, and they make their points of view and their opinions before they even meet a person, before they even get to know the person. And when you do that, you can totally get somebody wrong and be mistaken. And I think a lot of people are mistaken about Randy.
All I can say is I just think his actions just speak for themselves. The team, it's a lot. Like a couple of years ago, Michael Jordan didn't get picked first, but now everybody regrets it. And I think that's going to be the same thing that happens with Randy.
We know Randy can outrun anybody, but can he outrun his past?
No, he can't, and his past is in the past, and I think his future is spotless. Randy has matured a lot.
I think they're piling on. I mean, they're just rehashing old things.
When Randy faces adversity in the NFL for the very first time, how do you think he's going to react?
I think adversity, it might slow him down a lot, but it'll never stop him, just because he never lets it stop him. He might get down a little bit, and he came through all the adversity through negative things in the media, but he's still pumping, he's still going as hard as he can.
I think he's totally made a 100% change. He's totally turned things around, and he's done great things for us here at Marshall. And whoever picks him in the NFL draft will be very lucky to have him on his team.
Whoever gets him, I guarantee you, will be doing somersaults.
One more note, another psychological evaluation that was given to and made available to the Bears, Dolphins, and Saints by a New Orleans psychiatrist said, in summary, this young man, under the right system, should adjust quickly and respond positively in a most consistent manner. So it's not all negative, at least from the psychological standpoint, for Randy Moss. Chris?
All right, Linda, thank you. We'll check in with you often. Of course, we were watching the clips there, and you know, in that Motor City Bowl, I called it CarQuest, but I got the autos mixed up. You know, 6 for 173, 6'5" to run like that now. On field, no question.
Well, I think he still needs to work at wide receiver, great physical and athletic ability, Chris. But I think teams have to have a philosophy about off-the-field concerns. Either you look at that strongly, or as Bill Kuharich of the Saints said, you analyze each player individually. I really think, looking back a couple years, had Lawrence Phillips gained 1,500 yards, Randy Moss would have been a top 5 pick.
Now the X factor of round one becomes Randy Moss. Mike Ditka and the Saints passing on him at number 7. Mike Gottfried, Randy Moss will continue to be one of the stories until he is selected. Let's first talk about the on-the-field attributes of Moss.
Oh, Chris, there's no doubt he's a great athlete, a game-breaker type player that's done a lot of things for this Marshall football program. He has excellent speed. Of course, we know that he has excellent size. He has a change of direction for a big receiver. In 2 years, he had 168 pass receptions, 53 touchdowns for Marshall University. Shows his athletic ability here. Catching this pass from Pennington, he shows speed. He shows cutting ability. He shows a hurdle here at the end. Strength of a stiff arm. He gets in the end zone. He really is an outstanding talent. Now, he has a high upside. I mean, high. He has a downside as big as the Grand Canyon.
And the downside refers to some of the off-the-field stuff. But getting back to Randy Moss as a wide receiver, at times it looked very easy, and it was very easy for Moss in the Mid-American Conference. A lot of defensive backs didn't come up, didn't challenge him. They were afraid they were going to get beat deep. What about Moss as a receiver and things that might be a red flag, excluding the off-the-field stuff?
Well, you look at all the good things, Chris, but when I had him in the Motor City Bowl, he runs undisciplined routes. And the thing that bothered me the most about Randy Moss was that as I'd watch him play, he'd take a couple plays off. He'd play hard 3 plays and then take a couple plays off. He looks like he lacks concentration, and that could be a problem for a coach down the way. But he is a talent, but the downside is there.
I really think that the concern for NFL teams is not the off-the-field stuff. It really is the question in their mind, will Randy listen? Will he listen to his position coach? Will he listen to his head coach? Because at times you wonder, whether Randy Moss knows whether or not to take good advice. He's had plenty of time since the end of the season to kind of rehabilitate this image and try to convince NFL teams that he is coachable, that he will live by the code in the NFL. And at times, Randy has not listened to his agents or his coaches or his mother or his minister or anybody else. And I think that's a major concern, Chris. Will Randy listen to us?
Well, that's a concern for the team on the board right now. Maybe the Dallas Cowboys, who I tell you what, this would be one of the great stories of this draft if Randy Moss ended up with the Dallas Cowboys. Just, oh man, there's a lot of storylines off of that one, aren't there? Well, news of the Cowboys' interest in Randy Moss. Let's go back to West Virginia and join Linda Cohen. Cowboys, one of the serious suitors?
No question about that, Chris. There's serious interest. One of the Cowboy scouts have been staying here in Charleston at a local hotel, calling here, the home of where Moss is staying, of the advisors, keeping tabs on what is going on with Randy Moss. Also, of the trips Randy made, the Cowboys, he was the most impressed by that. He enjoyed meeting Deion Sanders. Sanders spending a lot of time with him, of course, and also he enjoyed his chat with Jerry Jones. He spent about an hour with Jerry, and Jerry and Randy were getting along, and Randy was saying it compared it to a couple of friends just catching up on old times. But Chris Myers, what is the latest in Dallas?
Well, Linda, I just got off the phone with the Cowboys war room, and they're going to go cold feet like a number of teams are with the Randy Moss, and I doubt seriously how much they really consider drafting Randy Moss at this, the 8th pick. The Cowboys have gone out of their way to repair an image. Calvin Hill brought in over a year ago as the behavioral consultant, and that's Calvin in the war room earlier today talking with the brain trust of the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones using psychological and staff testing, psychiatric testing for the first time with his draft picks. One concern the Cowboys had in this study was any player who mixed substance abuse with violent behavior was something they wanted to stay away from, and that's an issue that the Cowboys have had to deal with. So at this point, the Cowboys are removing Randy Moss from the equation at this selection. Dallas is entertaining trade discussion. The interest, as you look live in the war room, is a defensive line. Greg Ellis out of North Carolina is the player that the Cowboys would select if they stay at this position. That's an area of need and something that they have a concern with at this point. Randy Moss is not in the picture for the Cowboys. Now let's go to Andrea Kramer.
Well, Chris, one team for whom Randy Moss might be in the picture, they are considering Moss, although they don't necessarily think he'll be there at number 21, are the Minnesota Vikings. Dennis Green told me, this is America. Everyone deserves a second chance. But perhaps even more interestingly, they have someone on their team they think would be a very good influence on Moss. His brother, Eric, the mammoth offensive tackle that the Vikings picked up at the end of the year. They feel that he would be a good influence on him. You also have to remember the Vikings have Chris Carter, who would be a mentor of sorts. Dennis Green said, we are considering him. It is not our immediate need, but they have not taken him off the draft board as other teams have. And one thing, Chris, the scouting reports that I read, interestingly said, one scouting report said, hopefully his older brother will be a guide for him and help him out. They are two totally opposite people. Back to you in New York, Chris.
All right, Andrea, thank you. What is interesting here, guys, is that he could go with this pick, or he could fall all the way to early second. I'm not predicting that, but that could happen. But as you look at Dallas, Michael Irvin, of course, Pro Bowler, but since Alvin Harper left, he really hasn't had a running mate on the field, has he?
No, Michael's had to really struggle on the position by himself. Look at the people. You've got Michael Irvin with 75 receptions, but anybody that's played opposite him, Anthony Miller was brought in, didn't produce. Stepford Williams, a young guy, still don't know. Ernie Mills is brought in now because Chan Gailey knows what he gets in that product. I think Billy Davis could be an answer for them, but only 3 catches, and Macy Brooks, 0. I personally think that Randy Moss, if he was to wind up a Dallas Cowboy, would be a good fit. Now, everybody would say, oh my gosh, why? Because I think Michael Irvin has grown up and learned a lot from his experience and can help a Randy Moss. Deion Sanders could be one of the most misunderstood players in football. This is a top quality individual who could have great influence. Both very visible men, both very strong personalities, could help out a Randy Moss an awful lot. And now you might have that player opposite Michael that'll help Troy out, help Emmett out, now help a Chris Warren, who's become a part of that backfield, and complete that offense. The line's okay. The wide receiver position is decent. It could be helped here. I'd be a little bit surprised if they do go this route. Personally, Chris, I think they need help in the defensive line more than any place in the Dallas Cowboys. But to me, a Randy Moss there, I could understand it. I could live with it. I could even almost justify it.
The wait will continue a little bit longer for Randy Moss. Jimmy Johnson, a coach who might have gone with Moss in this slot and said he trades out. So Randy continues to wait as the names of other players are clicked off. We've already heard his coaches and teammates defend him. We've also heard some NFL coaches express their reservations, those summed up earlier today by our Mike Godfrey.
He has a high upside. I mean, high. He has a downside as big as the Grand Canyon.
With the fifth pick in the draft, Chicago Bears select running back, Penn State University, Curtis Enos. The Rams select defensive end, Nebraska, Grant Wistrom. New Orleans Saints select tackle, San Diego State University, Kyle Turley.
I just got off the phone with the Cowboys war room, and they're going to go cold feet like a number of teams are with the Randy Moss.
What is interesting here, guys, is that he could go with this pick, or he could fall all the way to early second.
The Dallas Cowboys select defensive end from North Carolina, Greg Ellis.
One team for whom Randy Moss might be in the picture, they are considering Moss, although they don't necessarily think he'll be there at number 21, are the Minnesota Vikings. Dennis Green told me, this is America. Everyone deserves a second chance. But perhaps even more interestingly, they have someone on their team they think would be a very good influence on Moss, his brother, Eric.
Well, the Vikings may be surprised after all. Pick number 21, just a couple of picks away. It's the Packers and then the Lions. So we'll have to see, in fact, if Minnesota does take Randy Moss. In the meantime, the Moss camp waiting patiently, or perhaps not so patiently, in Charleston, West Virginia, where Linda Cohn is standing by. Linda?
Oh, Chris, they're patient, all right. Randy's smiling, munching on chicken wings, remaining relaxed. Meanwhile, his agent, Bus Cook, who also represents Brett Favre, of course, with Green Bay, moments ago got off the phone with the Packers, who said they're definitely not interested in Randy Moss because simply they have too many receivers. Their concentration is on defense. But about the Vikings, Bus Cook had a nice conversation this morning with Dennis Green. Dennis Green had contacted Bus, talked about the possibility of taking Randy. Green didn't think Randy would be available when it was Green's turn to pick at 21, but it looks like he will be available at that spot. So Dennis Green said he might be reevaluating things when he had that conversation with Bus Cook this morning. And Chris Myers, is there a possibility?
Yeah,
actually,
yes,
we're going to... Go ahead,
Chris. Linda. I was going to say there is that possibility. I just got off the phone with one of the Viking assistant coaches who is making an argument, one of the offensive coaches who said he's rated as one of the top 5 offensive players in the draft. Vikings hoping to learn from history. In '95, they wanted Warren Sapp. Tony Dungy was pounding on the table. They passed on him, regretted that later. Chris Carter, they think, can be a positive influence. The Vikings are considering Randy Moss, even though their priority is a cornerback. Right now, let's go back to Chris Berman in New York.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. Very quickly, Minnesota is in as we have a run of the NFC Central Division teams. Here's Gene Washington.
The Minnesota Vikings have selected wide receiver from Marshall University, Randy Moss.
There you go. Carter, Jake Reed, Randy Moss, a healthy Brad Johnson, Robert Smith signed, McDaniel and Stussy signed up front.
His brother Eric Moss in Minnesota. So I think you look at Randy, you see the size, physical ability, athletic ability is tremendous. You watch him here against Ole Miss, and this is the first play, offensive play for Marshall, touchdown. That's the capability he brings to the table. Tremendous speed. I tell you, he can just explode on deep routes. You watch him here. Look at the athleticism coming up here. I mean, you're talking about a guy, look at that. I mean, you don't see that in receivers that come into the NFL draft out of the college ranks every year. Now, granted, he dominated the lower level competition. You see him here, fade route. He's unstoppable in the Mid-American Conference in that particular area. Catching the ball right off the defender's helmet. You look at this, a man among boys at that level. The question with Randy is, against West Virginia, and of course in that Ole Miss game after he hit the home run early, struggled a little bit getting off the line of scrimmage. Route running just a little sloppy. He needs to fine-tune his game a little bit. Obviously, the off-the-field concerns are there. He has to put all that to rest, stay focused on football, work on his game at wide receiver. I spoke to Andre Wadsworth about him. Of course, they were together that 1 year, and he said one thing about Randy Moss that impressed Andre was he was in the weight room and he was working to develop his skills. That 1 year he was at Florida State as a redshirt. So if he stays focused, sky's the limit for a kid with his physical and athletic ability.
Hey, offensive weapons in Minnesota, Joe. We just mentioned them here. I mean, let's take a look.
If you see a big grin in Minnesota, it's Brian Billick's, the offensive coordinator. He's got to be grinning ear to ear. Andrew Glover at tight end, all these wide receivers. You look at the receptions. Chris Carter with 89, Jake Reed with 68, Chris Walsh with just 11, and Hatchett with just 3. But now you bring in a Randy Moss. You go 3 wide. You've got the 3 biggest receivers in a division where they like to throw the football anyway. I think the one thing that Randy Moss brings now to the Minnesota Vikings is he brings a real deep threat down the field. You look at Carter, you look at Reed, both of them big guys, both of them mid-range big receivers. Now you've got somebody who adds a stretch to the field. You start stretching the field out with him, you can do an awful lot with those big guys underneath. So, and I also think we talked about this if he'd gone to Dallas. Very positive influences around him. We talked about a Michael Irvin, I believe can be a positive influence, and a Deion Sanders. Now you look at Reed and Carter and the guys that have been put together on that Minnesota Viking football team. You've got a very good positive group for him to be around.
I go back to the Detroit Lions. Terry Fair, 5'9", has to match up against a Reed, a Carter, and now a Moss in a division where you had Abrams, another small corner.
Yeah, but I still think, quickness can negate size. Like I said, you can't be perfect with the ball. Guys can get in front pretty good.
Well, 5'9" cornerback covering Randy Moss and Jake Reed and Chris Carter. Good luck, Joe.
He better be able to run at least, right?
One of our quarterbacks, and we have a lot of quarterbacks, who play with a guy even taller and more angular than Randy Moss. I'm talking about Harold Carmichael. Let's go up to Ron Jaworski. And, Jaws, how does Moss fit in with Minnesota? Obviously, they can push the envelope through the air.
Yeah, Boomer, from an athletic standpoint, it's a great fit because he's got the size in the red zone to go up and get the football. He's got the size and the speed to come across in the red zone and catch the delay routes underneath and run them in the end zone with his great ability. But where I see a problem, he's kind of a freelance route runner. He likes to do things on his own. And as Joe mentioned a moment ago, Brian Billick likes that disciplined timing and rhythm passing game where the quarterback sets it 3 steps, delivers the ball in 2 seconds, or excuse me, 1.5 seconds, and the receiver runs out. And I'm not sure Randy Moss is the kind of guy that's going to assimilate all those little nuances of a timing and rhythm passing game quickly. But he certainly has the ability to do so. And I'll tell you, 3 wide, when you look at that, they got some real talent, Boomer.
It'll be interesting, Jaws. It will be interesting to watch. And that team is one of the most fun teams to watch anyway. And then Brad Johnson got hurt late, and then they are a team that will really contend next year, even though there are 4 playoff teams from the NFC Central. Let's go out now to West Virginia, to Linda Cohn, who is with Randy Moss. Linda.
Chris, his mother says it's fulfilling a lifelong dream for him. Randy Moss playing along with his brother Eric, and it's going to be with the Minnesota Vikings. Congratulations, Randy. Did you think it was going to take this long, though?
No, I really didn't, but we all sat in the room looking at the TV, and we just waited on the right call to be made. So Coach Green made the right call, and I'm happy, and now I can just be there with my brother.
Minutes ago, you were talking with Dennis Green, and what did he have to say? What did he tell you?
He just said, really, just to be encouraged and just let all that stuff and hype just still keep it in the back, and let's just, concentrate on what we're doing best, and he's going to bring me in to play ball, and that's what I'm going to do.
Have you had previous discussions with your brother about the Vikings or the possibility of joining him there?
I don't think my brother expected me to be late in this round, but I guess, this was made out for the best, and I'm just happy and very lucky.
Randy, you told me yesterday that if you knew all this kind of talk about all the negatives coming out, the weeks leading up to the draft, you told me if you knew all this was going to happen, that maybe you would, have thought differently about coming out after your sophomore year at Marshall, and you might have considered staying another year.
Yeah, like I told you yesterday, I think the past had a lot to do with it, but I'm picked now. I'm a Viking now, so I'm very happy and excited to be going there with my brother and Coach Green in Minnesota with the receiving corps and quarterback and running back that they have. So hopefully I can fit in and just make it happen.
You also told me that you have something to prove, especially to the teams that passed you by. Does that still hold true?
I'm not really holding a grudge, but I think with the kind of excitement I bring to a football game or team, they passed me up. So I don't really, like I said, don't hold no grudges. I'm just happy now that I'm a Viking. So I'm just going to make the best effort to go in there and just hopefully fulfill my dream, and that's to play and win games.
Do you feel you have anything to work on at the next level?
I think just listening to all the analysts, they really said a lot, and I took it in my head, and they made a point, these certain things that this guy has to work on to be successful in the league. So I'm just taking it beyond, to another level and just do what they said and hopefully turn out to be the best.
You had a reputation of teaching young receivers at Marshall University, some of the things you learned in your 1 year at Florida State. Are you going to welcome that from the veteran receivers like a Chris Carter and such at the Minnesota Vikings?
Oh, most definitely. Seeing Chris and Jake Reed down there doing the things they do best, they score touchdowns, and I think I was looking at the receptions for the whole year, and hopefully I could just fit in to their mix. And like I said, just make it happy. I think I'm about winning championships, and I just want to come to Minnesota and hopefully put them back in the game.
Randy, thanks for your time and congratulations. Right. Randy Moss, a new member of the Minnesota Vikings.
All right, Linda, congratulations to Randy. We know now the Minnesota Vikings are no Rolling Stones because Rolling Stones don't gather no moss. The Vikings have gathered Randy Moss, and when we return, we'll talk with Dennis Green on the video conference phone. And so one of the more intriguing sagas of the first round and now has an ending. And we presume it's a happy ending with the brothers Moss now playing for Coach Dennis Green in Minnesota. Randy Moss, the Vikings' first-round pick, the 21st overall. And joining us now on the Sprint video teleconferencing is Coach Dennis Green. And Dennis, first of all, congratulations on the pick. As usual, you're never afraid to stick your neck out, right? Never afraid.
Well, the bottom line.
When did you think that Randy Moss would come to you?
Probably last November. Because I think in the National Football League, well, let's face it, I mean, this is old news. I mean, this is not like it happened yesterday, and that's been our philosophy. We'll take the best player on the board. So last November, I thought it could be, regardless of whether we're picking 30 or further down, that we could get the player.
Dennis, how much in knowing his brother and having him play for you, did that play a role? A huge role in you making this pick this way?
Well, we know more about Randy Moss than anybody else. We have his brother here. We spent a lot of time talking to him. We've got probably the best spiritual leader in the National Football League, and Reverend Keith Johnson, who's ahead of cause. We got one of the best players, Chris Carter, in the National Football League as far as working and trying to get guys to understand what it takes to be true to yourself and understand yourself. So we have no doubts about Randy Moss. What we think is this: Randy Moss teaming up with Chris Carter and Jake Reed, with Robert Smith in the backfield running the football, and Andrew Glover going down the middle will give us the most potent offense in the National Football League, and that's why we drafted him.
Will there be, and I know you just drafted him, Dennis, so I mean, you don't have the answer to the question yet, but will there be special provisions in his contract, including maybe drug testing that maybe you're not in other players' contract? Is that part of an agreement? I mean, you've talked with him before, obviously.
No. No, why would it be? Everybody in the National Football League has drug testing. I mean, I think this, when I go back to this, it's plain and simple. This is a young man who's a great player who made some mistakes in his past. He was 18 and 19 years old. He's still only a 21-year-old young man. And we think this, that his life is ahead of him. We're taking the high road. We're saying we got a full glass of water here, and we got a football player who's going to mean a lot to our football team to help us win a championship.
Hey, you know what I hear in your voice? You know, we just visited a couple of weeks ago. I hear and I see excitement. I mean, you're excited about this, about going to redo the playbook, right?
Well, I am, simply because what we have now and what we haven't had in a few years is a big receiver that can go on the outside opposite of Jake Reed, with now Chris Carter working real big time on the inside. And so with that in combination with Robert Smith, we're going to be there.
Dennis, this is Joe. Does it also give you that opportunity to take the ball down the field a little bit more? Chris and Jake, they're fast, but certainly not in this type of a category. Sure. It really can stretch the field for you, can it?
Well, I think it can. You know, we've had so much trouble with Herman Moore throughout the years, and Herman runs a hitch and a hook and a go. I mean, Randy Moss can do a lot of things besides just a hitch, a hook and a go, but that is sufficient when you talk about what Chris Carter can do on the inside and Jake Reed on the outside. And again, with us putting the kind of money with Robert Smith, it only makes sense for us to do everything we can to put the defense in a situation where they cannot defend the Minnesota Vikings.
Dennis, this is Chris again. Now, you passed a couple of years ago on Warren Sapp, but every situation is different. And there's a question with some about coachability of Randy Moss. You obviously, I'm guessing, don't feel that that's even an issue. Am I right?
Well, it isn't. Well, we talked with Coach Bob Pruitt. He thinks he's a tremendously coachable young man, and I think this. We know a lot about him. We don't think that's going to be a problem at all. We have a lot of players on our team that have had to develop and come on. He does too. No rookie player is going to go out and be the MVP in the National Football League. But we know this. This is a great talent, and that's really what it comes down to. So we're not going to be concerned about that. We know what he's going to do. He's going to come in here and help make us a lot better.
Hey, you see Warren Sapp twice a season, and you see what sort of a player he has become, which isn't really a surprise. Did passing on him a couple of years ago maybe affect this decision at all? I mean, creep in and say, hey, we could have done that too?
Keep in mind, all Warren Sapp information came the day before the draft and the day of the draft. What we're talking about with Randy Moss, we've known about for 2 years. So I think that's the difference in night and day.
You're excited. I can sense it. Go back in there and enjoy yourself.
Tee the ball up.
Tee it up now. All right. Hey, thanks for joining us, Dennis. We'll see you a little later.
All right. Take care now. You bet.
I tell you what.
Play now.
They were laying in the weeds on this one, weren't they? Well, they were laying in the weeds. Well, we'll talk about that.